would stop seeing things the way they are and see things the way you want them to be, and then if you would have the ability to tell people the way things are in the future, not the way they are presently, those things that you say you want and you speak of will come. That's the law.
What did Dee mean by chiropractic is meant to connect man the physical with man the spiritual?
Sure, well, the connection is God. Your physical body with your spiritual body, which is God. Or whatever you want to call it. But there is a spirit of life in you that has to be reconnected to the physical entity that you walk around with. So the adjustment connects the two. The purpose of the adjustment is solely to allow a greater expression of innate through matter, period, or life, as the case may be, being synonymous terms. So if we make an adjustment on a person, the idea is that there is a connection, a definite connection of, and a greater expression of life through matter. And if we stop and think about it, life is motion. The chiropractic term is motion. When you have a subluxation, which is an interference to the expression of life over the nerve system, beneath the point of subluxation is paralysis, which simply means a lack of motion or lack of life. So the reality is then that this person is not expressing maximum life. And by correcting the subluxation, which allows now a greater expression of life or innate through matter, then that tissue cell begins to vibrate at a higher rate. And when it reaches its level of vibration, then it functions normally. It's all simple. Everybody makes it complex. What is your life other than spirit? Is it a physical thing? Would you say your life is a physical thing? You would say that? Well, you were wrong. It isn't a physical thing. Your life is not a physical thing. Your life is spiritual. It is a spirit, is it not? I mean, you ever see life? You ever drink life or pick up life or eat life? No, it's there. It's expressing itself, but it expresses itself through matter. Now, if you remove the life from a physical body, in an instant, that body doesn't work anymore, does it? Because it doesn't have what? Life. Life is the spirit that causes the body to work. When you make an adjustment, you unite the two because areas in the body are not expressing life as it should, so therefore that part of the body doesn't work, or it's dysfunctional. So when we make an adjustment, there's an expression of life through matter over the nerve system to the level of the tissue cell. And now we have motion and we have life again.
What is the chiropractic adjustment with that something extra?
Well, BJ coined that. You know, he gave the adjustment with the extra something. The extra something is the realization that, first of all, you have to be at the right place at the right time in the right direction. And if done correctly, then that particular adjustment holds. And that's when BJ was made the statement that he was adjusting people, namely just once. Why? Because the adjustment was holding. Why wasn't it holding for other people? Well, because perhaps they weren't making the proper adjustment. That's the first thing. The second thing is the idea that there is something within that individual that is expressing itself where it wasn't expressing before. And if we come to the conclusion that if we can humble ourselves, God does the healing. So that extra something is the expression of God through man, period. If my consciousness isn't to the point where I know that I'm doing something that's viable and worthwhile, it may or may not work. On the contrary, if I have a great deal of certainty in that, it's going to work most of the time. So it's a big thing going on between the ears. Success is the same thing. You're only successful if your consciousness is success. If your consciousness is failure, then you're going to fail. So it's where you are in your relationship and your consciousness of being who you are and what you are. Are you do you consider yourself the greatest chiropractor on planet Earth? And you might say, well, that's pretty egotistical. So what? It's your consciousness. And you do better than the guy who thinks he's not, or has a lot of fear or doubt or disbelief. You know, the big thing is, in the Bible it says this. It says, look to the unseen. How can you look to the unseen? If you can't see it, how can you look to it? Well, you see it in your own mind, you see. So if you came in with a problem, whatever it is, be it cancer, it really doesn't make any difference. And I see you with cancer, and I see it being cancer, it's not very much if I can help you. But if I can see you the way I would like you to be, which is completely clean, then there's a possibility I could help you. I can't help you, but you can help yourself. Yes? You know, we had a fellow come in who had a sarcoma in his deltoid muscle. And he had already had it operated on once, and it was like indented where they removed the material. But he came back. And so he asked me if I could help him. And my stock answer was always this: I can move the bone, God can do the healing. That's it. That's all I got. So he said, well, I want you to help me if you can. And I said, okay. So I adjusted him, and he said, well, I know one thing. You can move the bone. He was sure of that. So then he had to expect, in my thoughts, he had to expect that God was going to heal him. And it came out like a pimple, a little pimple, and then it got bigger, and it looked like a boil, and it opened up. There's a hole there, and the hole was about the size of a silver dollar, and you could actually see in there. And then it came out, and like a, I don't know if you ever took the cover off of a golf ball, and it was all like rubber bands wrapped around. That's the way that thing looked, and it was just hanging there. So I sent him up to the hospital. They snipped it because there was just a little string there. Ran a biopsy. It was all cancerous, and this was all cleared up. They put a pie graft on top, and he was fine. That happened with women's breasts as well. How come I was able to do that? Am I any different than anybody else? No. Why are those things happening? Because I didn't think, I never recognized disease. My consciousness says it's not there. You're whole. So that's what I saw, and that's apparently what they saw. And they healed up. I had a lady come in who had broken her leg. Some of this stuff sounds a little goofy to the majority of people, but I'm telling you the way it is. And she came in with a cast on her leg, and I touched her cast, and she heard it, and I heard it. A click. I said, your leg, go get that thing x-rayed. There's no break there. She went to the hospital, excuse me, and they x-rayed it, and it was nothing there. I had a dog the same way. I had a dog where they put a pin in, it was nothing there. I mean, it was absolutely void of bone. I adjusted her, and we took her to get x-rayed, and it was all filled in. You could say, well, that sounds, goofy, because that sounds miraculous, right? Well, I expect miracles. It's all in your head. You agree with that? The world will agree with that for the most part. It is your consciousness. How come we have poor people and rich people? Because they had, what, luck? Or was it their consciousness? I have my son, who's passed on, bless his heart, but he said he was going to be a millionaire by the time he was, I think he said 40. And he was. But it took him that long to make that. He had his very best friend, and I want to say this too. Chris saw us in our poverty years. My first 8 years, I failed. and we had some hard times financially. He saw that and he lived that, so he had some of that in his mind. His best friend, from the time they were about 3 or 4 years old, his mother and dad were millionaires. Their parents were millionaires. One of them had a big furniture factory, another had a big foundry, and he thought everybody was a millionaire. He didn't know that. I mean, he never lived in poverty, never saw anybody that wasn't wealthy, and everybody, all their friends were wealthy. So what was his consciousness versus Chris's? His consciousness was, shoot, everybody's a millionaire. What's the big deal? So at Scott, at the same age, I think it was 40, he sold his computer business for $40 million, and they hired him back as a consultant for $1 million, taxes paid. It's different in consciousness, right? So how does chiropractic work? How do you think? If I don't think I can help you, do you think you're going to respond? No, you can't. I remember days when I was younger and cranking on people like trying to get oil out of the ground somewhere, and they wouldn't respond. I'd say, well, I can't help you. And as soon as I say that, they just was no chance of them being helped, you know. But if I never thought that, and after I found out who I was, I didn't think that, and those kinds of things didn't happen. They clear up.
What do you mean by once you found out who you were?
I didn't always know who I was. I thought I was poor. I thought I was a failure. I thought I was just not a real viable person to be real, you know. All I thought about was fear, and we never had any money. We never had any practice. 8 years, I only ever saw about 17 visits a day, which is pretty sad. But I didn't know who I was. I had no idea that I was who I am. I had no idea what chiropractic was either. I went to National, which they don't teach chiropractic. And as a matter of fact, they told me to prepare to starve for 4 years. Well, I've been an overachiever in my life, so I went for 8 years, and for sure. But when we came here, found out what chiropractic was, and I bought it completely because it was really what I had thought, even though I didn't express it. And I just flew with it, and and it didn't take me forever. I came here in May, and in July, I think it was, or June or July, we came back because we had them every 2 months in those days, and I was already doing 350 a week, from 17 a day to 350 a week, and then it just kept going up, you know, to where we finally hit 2,000 a week, steady, pretty steady, which is a great thing, I think.
And how did you train to stay, I call it staying clear or connected? What does it require?
For me? Well, realizing I was a street fighter and a semi-alcoholic, it took a bit of discipline in my life. So I meditated regularly, anywhere from 10 minutes to sometimes 3 or 4 hours. Real meditation, beautiful and stuff. I fasted up to 28 days. I was going for 40, but a negative guy sucked all the energy out of me, and I had to give it up. So, but it made it 28 days. And then we fasted every 1 day a week, every week. You know, every week was one day out of that week was a fast day. And then I started running, and I just did everything that I could do to discipline myself. I stopped eating meat. I stopped alcohol. I was smoking 3 packs of cigarettes. I just stopped immediately, and just took control of my life rather than letting